There are fresh questions over the accuracy of testimony from the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews to the Victorian Hotel Quarantine Inquiry in Melbourne last week. This comes after letters obtained by my colleague Andrew Clennell revealed the Prime Minister personally pressured the Premier to accept ADF troop support on at least 3 separate occasions in July. Mr Andrews testified on Friday that he had no expectation of support from the ADF to run the quarantine scheme, yet an examination of Mr Andrews' statements over the past 6 months by my Sky News colleague Peta Credlin has uncovered a statement in March where he categorically had been offered the use of troops by the Prime Minister.
It's the question the Premier has been avoiding for months. Why wasn't the army used to guard Victoria's quarantine hotels? Other states did use troops and they avoided the disastrous second wave that broke out in Victoria's hotels that led to deaths and a new state lockdown. In Daniel Andrews' sworn statement to the inquiry on Friday, he insists the offer was never made to him.
Leaving the National Cabinet meeting, I had absolutely no expectation whatsoever that in the establishment and the running of hotel quarantine there would be significant, extensive ADF support. That was not the case for every state. A case I think had been well made in relation to New South Wales, but I had no expectation at all that we would receive that type of support.
But Peta Credlin's examination of transcripts reveals the Premier's testimony is at odds with a statement he made in March after a National Cabinet meeting that discussed hotel quarantine. Here's a journalist questioning Mr Andrews.
Premier, in terms of keeping people in these quarantine hotel rooms, how will that work? Will there be guards at the door stopping people?
We'll utilise private security. We'll also utilise members of Victoria Police, and I'm very grateful to the Prime Minister for his offer of support from the Australian Defence Force. I think people will do the right thing. I think people know and understand this is serious, and they're coming home because they know that this is the safest place to be. They're coming home because they know that we are taking this seriously and the National Cabinet is working in the national interest.
Ever since the outbreak at the Ridges Hotel in June, the issue of who was guarding the hotels has been put under the microscope. The Premier has been steadfast the army wasn't used because it wasn't an option. Here he is on the 11th of August.
I think it is fundamentally incorrect to assert that there was hundreds of ADF staff on offer and somehow someone said no.
The denial prompted Defence Minister Linda Reynolds to publicly share a timeline of every occasion the ADF was offered since March. The hotel inquiry last week revealed emails were sent to the head of the Premier's department, Chris Eccles, offering support. The Premier told the inquiry on Friday he wasn't aware of them.
Given that it's so at odds with what I took away from the National Cabinet meeting, I think it would have been very significant to me. And I can't predict what outcome it might have had, but I certainly would have wanted to know because it would have presented us with options that we otherwise didn't have in a good faith interpretation, very clear interpretation of what had been decided at National Cabinet.
Perhaps this video will jog his memory. Gabriella Power, Sky News, Melbourne.